Medals don't buy seats, the agent sneered. What she couldn't see was the receipt in Nash's wallet, not for this flight, but for 3 adjacent plots at Arlington, paid in cash the year after Fallujah. 2 already occupied, 1 waiting for tomorrow. Nash's dress uniform covers shrapnel scars on his arms and chest that still ache decades later. But nothing compares to the phantom pain where Marcus should have been standing beside him. The terminal's noise fades as Nash grips his boarding pass, transporting him back to the kill zone's heat. Some fights follow you home, even into airport terminals. The Medal of Honor rests against Nash's collarbone, its weight measured in more than ounces. For him, the polished metal carries the echo of gunfire, the smell of burning vehicles, the exact pitch of Marcus's voice shouting over radio static. Passersby see a decoration. Nash feels the ridge where shrapnel creased the ribbon during the ambush that changed everything. A luggage cart bangs against a pillar. Nash's shoulders tense before he reins in the reaction. His fingers brush the metal's edge, pausing at the faint dent near the clasp. Marcus had pinned the medal to his uniform at the White House Ceremonial Official Act, now fused with private memory. Since then, Nash has polished the medal before every funeral, the cloth moving in the same small circles Marcus once used on his boots. The gate agent glances at the decoration with the same detached interest she'd give a frequent flyer tag. She doesn't see the calculations running behind Nash's eye, scanning crowd density, noting exit routes, measuring the distance to cover if someone started shooting. Terminal lights reflect off the metal's surface, casting star-shaped glints on the floor. Nash remembers the stars visible through smoke over Fallujah as he dragged Martinez to the medevac, their sharpness still vivid after all these years. A child points at the medal, and the mother quickly pulls the kid away, whispering about not bothering strangers. No one asks about the 5 silver stars at the ribbon's center. Each marks a separate act during those 20 minutes: the sprint across open ground, the tourniquet applied under fire, the radio call for artillery that nearly came too late. The medal hangs from a neck that still tenses at sudden noises, from shoulders that once carried 2 men at once through a hail of gunfire. The gate agent's scanner beeps as she processes boarding passes. The sound syncs with the memory of Marcus's pulse monitor in the field hospital. Nash breathes through it, counting like his therapist taught him. Around him, travelers debate overhead bin space and drink vouchers. No one notices the veteran discreetly wiping sweat from his palms, or how his left hand keeps drifting to his hip 2 years into retirement. After 28 years in uniform, the muscle memory of reaching for a sidearm remains. The medal catches light as Nash shifts. Its polished surface shows no trace of the blood that once streaked it, the dirt ground into its crevices during those desperate minutes. The citation called his actions heroic. Nash remembers mostly fear, the kind that dries your mouth and makes your hands shake until there's nothing left but to act. A flight attendant compliments the medal's shine. Nash nods, not explaining how he polishes it before every funeral. The metal warms against his skin, but the memories stay sharp. The world sees a decoration. Nash carries the rest, tucked away with the other reminders he never leaves behind. Nash's hand slips into his pocket, brushing past his boarding pass to find the folded sheet beneath. The burial schedule from Arlington, crisp and official, lists 3 names in black type. Marcus Williams sits at the top, his funeral set for 8:00 a.m. Tomorrow, Nash's last chance to stand at his friend's side. Below Marcus, 2 other names from the same ambush. The dates stretch across years, but when Nash runs his thumb over the paper, the distance collapses. He paid cash for the 3 plots in the year following the 2006 Fallujah ambush, when VA doctors still hoped Marcus would recover. He and Marcus stood together at Arlington, both walking without limps, both pretending the future might still be theirs. The clerk didn't ask questions. Nash remembers the quiet of the cemetery, the way Marcus joked that they'd outlast the shade trees, and how neither of them imagined how long the dying would take. The receipt's creases are deep from years of folding and unfolding, the ink faded where Nash's fingers always land. The gate agent had asked for proof of payment for the upgrade, her tone flat. Nash pressed the Arlington schedule between his fingers instead. This receipt isn't for a SEAT, it's for the right to be present when Marcus is lowered into Virginia soil. The paper carries a faint scent of polish and old leather, a reminder of last night's ritual: boots shined, uniform pressed, the details that matter when nothing else feels certain. He knows the plot numbers by heart. Marcus rests in Section 60, grave 3124, the same row as the others. Nash's own plot waits 2 stones down, but the schedule doesn't list his name. He keeps the paper close, a silent promise that he'll see this through. The schedule weighs nothing, but Nash feels its drag with every step toward the gate. He could show the agent the document, explain why this flight matters. But most people don't understand how one missed connection means missing the rifle salute, means failing a friend one final time. The numbers on the schedule are fixed, but Nash checks them anyway, as if repetition could change the outcome. The edges have softened from constant handling, the ink smudged where his thumb always presses. A child drops a toy near Nash's feet. He bends to retrieve it, the schedule shifting in his pocket, and hands the toy back with a nod. The mother thanks him, not noticing how his hand lingers near his chest afterward. The gate agent calls for final boarding, her voice cutting through the terminal's noise. Nash stands, the schedule pressed flat against his heart. The receipt lists what's owed, not what's paid. No dollar amount covers the debt. The watch Marcus lent him before the ambush, the stories left unfinished, the empty space at every reunion. He moves toward the jet bridge, the burial schedule a silent wait. Behind him, the terminal noise blurs into a low hum. The world keeps moving, unaware of the debts he carries. A teenager's voice cuts through the boarding line. "Must be nice playing dress-up," he mutters, not bothering to lower his voice. Nash doesn't turn. The words land and slide off, less wounding than the indifference of doctors or the silence of friends who never came home. VA doctors once dismissed his phantom pain as psychological, but mockery from a stranger barely registers. Nash's hands, stiff from shrapnel and cold mornings on distant bases, grip the boarding pass. The uniform's buttons take patience to fasten, fingers numb. Knuckles swollen, but every detail is correct. He checked each one before leaving the hotel, the ritual as precise as any inspection. The teenager leans against a pillar, gum snapping, eyes flicking over Nash's uniform with practiced boredom. He doesn't see the effort behind the fabric, the starch in the collar pressing against a trachea scar, the polish crusted in the treads of shoes shined at dawn, the jacket sleeves riding up over arms broken and set 3 times. What looks like costume is the sum of years spent learning to move through pain, to ignore the ache in a left knee that never healed right, to stand straight even when the weight of metals tugs at the collarbone. Each metal clicks softly as Nash shifts, the sound sharp and metallic, nothing like the cheap clatter of costume jewelry. A group of girls giggle at a phone nearby, their laughter bouncing off the glass. Nash watches their reflection in the window faces, unmarked by sandstorms or the pressure of a helmet strap. The teenager's gaze lingers on the medals, then slides away, uninterested. He doesn't know that the yellow ribbon stands for malaria in Liberia or that the red and white mark frostbite in Kosovo. To him, they're just colored scraps, meaningless decorations pinned to a jacket worn for effect. Nash adjusts his tie, fingers moving by habit. He remembers this morning in the hotel mirror, counting the ribbons as he dressed. Each one is a marker, a tally of places and people lost. The routine steadies him, even as the terminal's fluorescent lighting makes the metals glint in unfamiliar ways. The boarding announcement crackles overhead. The teenager pushes past, backpack swinging, clipping Nash's elbow, the same elbow that caught a bullet fragment when he pulled Marcus from the street in Fallujah. The boy doesn't look back. Nash feels the impact, not just in bone but in memory. He knows the teenager will forget this moment before he's even found his seat, while Nash will catalog every detail, another entry in a ledger that never balances. The gate agent glances at Nash's uniform, eyes sliding over the rows of colored fabric and metal. To her, it's a formality, not a record. She doesn't ask about the medals, or the scars they cover. She doesn't see the hours spent polishing buckles, sewing loose threads, or replacing ribbons faded by desert sun. The uniform is just another outfit in the crowd, unremarkable unless you know what to look for. Outside, baggage handlers move suitcases along the conveyor. The teenager boards, already absorbed in his phone. Nash straightens his jacket. The material itches at the seams, a reminder that not all wounds heal cleanly. He steps forward as the line advances, metals clicking in rhythm with his stride. The comment lingers, But Nash lets it go. There are more pressing things than the opinions of strangers. He checks his watch, measuring the hours left, and focuses on the task ahead. Less than 18 hours remain until the ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery, 800 sharp. Nash tracks the shrinking window in his head, recalculating every variable. The delay slices away the time he'd meant to spend with Jocelyn, the minutes he'd promised to help Marcus's oldest boy with his uniform. He remembers the kid at the Purple Heart ceremony, eyes wide, lost in a sea of adults and medals, too young to understand what any of it meant. The terminal clock creeps toward midnight. Nash runs the numbers again. 2 hours from touchdown at Reagan to the cemetery gates, maybe 30 minutes to clear D.C. traffic if he's lucky, 15 to change at the hotel. There's no buffer, left no margin for error, none of the careful redundancies he'd built into every mission plan. His dress shoes, the ones that pinch where shrapnel twisted his foot's arch, sit in a garment bag somewhere over Kansas, not waiting in his hotel room as planned. Marcus's last conscious words return not a dramatic send-off, just a hoarse whisper as medics loaded him into the helicopter. "Tell my kids I chose this." Nash never got to ask what "this" meant. The ambush, the army. The wounds that left Marcus battling phantom pain for 12 years. The morphine took him before Nash could answer, before he could promise he'd be there for the family, no matter what. A text from Jocelyn sits unread on Nash's phone. "Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, Colonel. Marcus always said you'd move heaven and earth for your men." The message stings. Nash can't move a single airline, let alone heaven and earth. The floor buffer's hum blends with memories of the ventilator in Bethesda's ICU, the same mechanical rhythm. Marcus's hands had twitched in his sleep, nails scraping at IV tubes. Nash still has faint scars from holding those hands steady through the worst of it. The funeral program in his pocket spells out the honors: rifle volley, bugler, folded flag. It leaves out the things that matter: the weight of a dress uniform in August humidity, the awkwardness of standing among the living when you're the one who survived, the way protocol fails when you hear dirt hit the casket. If this flight cancels, the next one lands him 6 hours too late. 6 hours too late to stand with Jocelyn when the chaplain reads the citation. 6 hours too late to look Marcus's kids in the eye and keep the promise he made in that hospital room. He shifts his weight, feeling the pinch of old wounds, the drag of memory. Outside, ground crews move in slow patterns, lit by sodium lights. Somewhere out there, Marcus's casket waits under guard, just as they once stood watch over wounded friends. Nash's watch beeps the hour. The sound lines up with the memory of a cardiac monitor flatlining 3 sharp tones that marked the end of Marcus's fight and the start of a promise Nash still owes. The boarding area quiets. Nash stands at the edge of the crowd, the numbers on the clock ticking down. He waits, measuring each moment, bracing for the next test. Silence is a calculation, not a default. Nash stands at the counter, the gate agent's dismissive tone drifting over him. He notes her broken eye contact, the clipped way she asks for his documents, the subtle shift in her voice when she sees the Medal of Honor. Years of training make the assessment automatic: threat level, crowd mood, possible outcomes. He registers the impatience behind him, the pressure building in the line, and weighs his options as if scanning a combat zone for the safest route forward. He could escalate. The words are ready if he needs FEMA request for a supervisor, a call to an old battalion commander now stationed at the Pentagon. One message and the airline would scramble to accommodate him, maybe even ground flights if it came to that. Nash considers it, feels the weight of that possibility, but lets it pass. The funeral matters more than a brief show of force. He's learned that some victories aren't worth the cost. The agent sighs and taps her screen, nails clicking in a practiced rhythm. Nash reads the calculation in her body languages. He's thinking about her next break, not the man in front of her. He's thinking about Marcus, remembering the hours they spent in silence after bad news, the way Marcus never raised his voice in the VA waiting room no matter how many times they lost his paperwork. Nash's own silence now is not surrender. It's a deliberate act, a skill sharpened by years of military service, a way to absorb the impact rather than escalate the conflict. He flexes his left hand, feeling the old scar tighten under the skin. The pain is familiar, a grounding point. Nash's mind runs through the same steps he used in combat. Identify, assess, decide. He measures the risk of missing Marcus's funeral against the fleeting satisfaction of putting the agent in her place. The math is simple. He holds his ground, lets the moment pass. The crowd's energy shifts. Someone snaps a photo, the flash reflecting off his medals. Nash doesn't react. He's been under harder scrutiny than this, from interrogators and commanders, from families who wanted answers he couldn't give. The agent finally meets his eyes, expecting anger or complaint. Instead, she finds only stillness, the kind that comes after decisions are made. To the casual observer, Nash's silence might look like defeat, but veterans would recognize the discipline in it, the restraint that keeps a situation from spiraling. Silence was sometimes the only shield in hostile territory, the only way to keep yourself and others safe. Marcus taught him that. Not every battle is won by speaking. His phone vibrates, again a reminder that he could still call in favors if it came to that. Nash ignores it. He stands, composed, letting the silence speak for him. The agent shifts, unsettled by his calm. Someone in the crowd mutters about respect. Another passenger quietly films, waiting for a scene that never comes. Nash could break the silence now, force the issue, but he remembers every time Marcus was denied dignity by a system that never listened. He chooses not to repeat that mistake. The agent looks away first. Nash remains steady, the calculation complete. The terminal's background noise resists a boarding call, the shuffle of feet, the sharp buzz of the intercom. Nash's focus narrows, the present moment blurring into something older, something carried forward from years of watching and waiting. The terminal speaker announces another boarding call, the voice distorted by static. To most, it's just background noise. For Nash, the cadence echoes the radio chatter from years ago, the clipped urgency of commands in a combat zone. The overhead message blends with the hum of the crowd, each sound a potential trigger. The gate number glows Gate 47. Nash notes it, the way he once tracked casualty reports, the number carrying its own quiet weight. A janitor's cart squeaks across the tiles, wheels rattling in a rhythm that calls up the memory of medevac gurneys rolling over broken pavement. Nash's fingers tighten around the funeral program in his pocket, feeling the paper grow damp. A baby's wail rises from a few gates away, sharp and insistent. For a second, it's Private Ellison's voice calling for a medic, the memory so clear Nash's hands twitch toward his belt, searching for bandages that aren't there. He catches himself and focuses on steadying his breath, recalling the therapist's advice: 5 counts in, 7 counts out. The departure board flickers, numbers updating in rapid sequence. Nash watches the shifting digits, each change a reminder of how quickly things can go wrong. The scent of cleaning spray drifts through the air, citrus sharp, and suddenly Nash tastes the dust of Fallujah, the chalky grit that lingered in his mouth for weeks. He blinks, trying to clear the overlay of memory, but the edges of the airport blur and sharpen, old scenes playing behind his eyes. A boarding pass drops at his feet. Nash bends to pick it up, his uniform jacket tugging across his back, the same spot where Marcus once dug out shrapnel with a pair of tweezers in a makeshift aid station. The pain then was immediate and bright. Now it's a dull ache, resurfacing in moments like this. The passenger thanks him and moves on, unaware of the memory that just replayed. The clock above the gate ticks toward midnight, its movement measured and relentless. Nash checks his own watch. Less than 16 hours until taps will sound at Arlington. He focuses on the task ahead, using the numbers as a lifeline. The overhead lights buzz, harsh and steady, a sound that reminds him of flyovers at memorial services. A security officer passes by, radio squawking static. Nash's shoulders tense at the familiar cadence of military comms. The officer's hand rests near his belt, his stance practiced. Their eyes meet for a moment. There's a flicker of recognition, maybe the quiet acknowledgement of a fellow reservist. The nod is small, but it lands. Near Gate 46, a woman soothes her anxious dog. The animal's bark is sharp, syncing with the memory of Marcus's service dog, who used to alert to night terrors. That Labrador died not long before Marcus didoned more loss in a line that never seems to end. The gate agent glances at Nash, seeing only a man waiting, unaware of the storm behind his stillness. Cold air from the vents brushes Nash's neck, a reminder of mornings spent on the perimeter in Ramadi, waiting for the sun to rise over razor wire. His hand finds the edge of the funeral program again, tracing the crease as if it might anchor him to the present. The terminal moves around him, full of ordinary urgency. Nash lets his breath steady, counting each exhale. The world keeps its paced flights delayed, announcements made, travelers lost in their own concerns. Nash waits, the ghosts and departures pressing close, memory and reality sharing the same space as the board refreshes, and Gate 47 remains delayed. A businessman at the next gate waves a lukewarm latte at a barista, voice rising above the terminal din. The cup becomes his whole world for a moment, an inconvenience that demands immediate attention. Nash watches as the man paces, shoes clicking against the tile, his problem solvable with a new drink and a few minutes' wait. Nash's own hands rest motionless at his side, the urge to reach for a sidearm long replaced by a quiet inventory of aches and old injuries. Nearby, a woman soothes her chihuahua nestled in a plastic carrier, adjusting a sweater on the trembling dog. She checks the fit, worries over airline policy, then digs for treats in her purse. Nash's eyes settle on the carrier's dimensions, a silent echo of the box that returned Marcus's belongings from Germany too light, too empty after years spent in and out of hospitals. The woman's concern is real, but it exists in a world where comfort is always within reach. The terminal's two worlds run parallel. Passengers debate flight delays, the best place to charge a phone, the cost of an upgrade. Nash's mind drifts to a different calculus, about 15 hours left until the flag is folded at Arlington, until he has to face Marcus's family and the weight of promises unkept. The businessman, latte in hand, returns to his seat with a small, satisfied nod. Nash measures success in other ways: men who made it home, wounds that closed, friends who still answer the phone. The numbers he tracks are not found on a departure board. The flight attendant's announcement of another delay draws groans from the crowd. The businessman mutters about a missed meeting, checking his watch as if time itself is negotiable. Nash checks his own, the countdown fixed and absolute. He doesn't complain. The stakes are different: missing a meeting versus missing a final chance to honor a brother in arms. A janitor mops up spilled coffee near Nash's feet, the rhythmic swish of the mop blending with flashes of memory. A medic rinsing blood from Marcus's wounds, water in the basin turning pink. The businessman sidesteps the puddle, careful not to stain his shoes. Nash has walked through worse, unflinching, the memory of battlefield mud and hospital corridors never far behind. As boarding is finally called, the businessman springs up, latte secure, and the woman gathers her dog. Nash stands slowly, knees stiff from years of forced marches and parachute landings. They all move toward the same jet bridge, but the distance between them isn't measured in steps or seat assignments. The woman apologizes when her carrier brushes Nash's leg, eyes still fixed on her pet. The businessman talks loudly about his frequent flyer status, already planning his next connection. Nash's focus shifts to the phone in his pocket, its screen glowing with an unanswered message. He feels the weight of the next conversation pressing in, the words he needs to find before the wheels even leave the ground. The boarding line inches forward, every step narrowing the distance between the world he stands in and the one he can't leave behind. Nash's phone glows in his palm, the terminal's overhead lights catching on the screen. Jocelyn Williams's name sits above a text message that's been waiting since morning. Marcus always said you'd move heaven and earth for your men. The words land with a weight he can't set down, the kind that presses into the space between what he promised and what he might now fail to deliver. He stares at the photo attached to her contact Marcus's arm around Jocelyn at their anniversary dinner, the three of them all smiles before any of them knew how long grief could last. He hesitates, thumb hovering over the call button. The boarding area noise fades as Nash rehearses the one apology that matters. "I'm sorry I might not be there in time." Not sorry for weather or delays, not for excuses, but for the possibility of failing to stand with Marcus's family at Arlington. The kind of failure that can't be fixed by rank or medals, that no one else will see but will echo for years. The gate agent glances over, impatience in her eyes. She sees only a man hesitating with his phone, not the calculation behind every slow breath. Nash's hand shakes, Not from nerves, but from the effort of holding back every other apology that wants to spill out sorry for surviving, sorry for not saving Marcus, sorry for every moment since Fallujah that led here. He pushes those aside, focusing on the single truth. Jocelyn and the kids expect him at the cemetery, and he's running out of time to keep that promise. The phone dims. Nash wakes it again, the reflection of his dress blues staring back at him. He scrolls through old messages, stopping at Marcus's last text, a blurry photo of Ranger, the service dog, sprawled on a hospital bed. Underneath, the words, "Tell Bobby the mutt's doing better than me." Nash reads it twice, then lets the screen go dark. He could reply to Jocelyn's message, tap out a quick reassurance, but he can't bring himself to send even a read receipt. Anything less than showing up in person feels like another small betrayal. He thinks of the funeral program folded in his pocket, of the way Marcus's youngest had once run from a Memorial Day service, unable to face the sound of the rifles. Nash knows what absence means to a Gold Star family. He knows how easily silence can be mistaken for indifference. A boarding announcement echoes through the terminal. Nash's thumb finally touches the call button, but he doesn't press. He rehearses what he'll say if he misses the service, how he'll explain that the world kept moving and left him behind. He imagines standing across from Jocelyn at the casket, trying to hand her the flag without his hands shaking, trying to look Marcus's oldest son in the eye. He puts the phone away, careful as if setting down live ordnance. The gate agent's attention shifts elsewhere, satisfied she's witnessed some small defeat. Nash adjusts his tie, the fabric stiff against his throat. The apology will have to wait for Arlington if he makes it. Until then, all he can do is keep moving forward. The uniform pressed and ready, the promise still unbroken. Nash's hands settle at his sides, fingertips brushing the pressed wool of his dress blues. The uniform is more than fabric and thread, it's a shield, built from habit and ritual, each detail checked and rechecked as a matter of discipline. He straightens his tie, the knot formed by muscle memory, every tug a reminder of mornings spent preparing for inspection or ceremony. The jacket's weight is familiar, its fit altered by years of service and the quiet accumulation of scars. He wore these blues to the White House for the Medal of Honor, the same jacket now carrying him back toward Arlington. The ribbons on his chest are lined up with exacting care, each one a silent record of places and moments that changed him. There's no need to check them again. He knows by touch that every edge is straight, every color in its proper place. The Medal of Honor hangs at his collarbone, a blue ribbon with white stars that draws glances from those passing by. Nash feels the contrast between the medal's public recognition and the indifference he faces at the gate. For him, the medal is both honor and burden, a constant reminder of the men whose names are stitched into the fabric of memory. As he shifts his stance, metal clicks softly, a sound that grounds him. The uniform structure offers a sense of control, a way to hold himself upright amid the uncertainty of the airport and the unease of waiting. He adjusts his jacket cuffs, the motion hiding pale scars that cross his wrists. Most of what the uniform conceals is invisible to others, but Nash feels every mark, each one a story folded beneath the surface. A young Marine stands across the terminal, dress blues crisp, ribbons sparse but perfectly aligned. Nash nods once, a silent recognition of shared tradition, the kind of acknowledgement that needs no words. The Marine's eyes flicker to Nash's medals, then away, and the moment passes. Generations apart, the uniform bridges the Gapeach man, anchored by a sense of duty and belonging. The gate agent glances at Nash, her attention already shifting to the next passenger. She sees only the outward display, an older man in an old uniform, waiting for a flight. She doesn't see the way the uniform holds him together, how it carries the memory of friends lost and promises made. For Nash, the dress blues are armor against the world's indifference, a way to honor the fallen and face what's coming with composure. He squares his shoulders, feeling the familiar weight settle across his back. The starch and gun oil scent lingers, a link to every ceremony, every graveside, every moment of standing watch. The uniform is a declaration, visible proof that he still belongs to something bigger than himself. As the terminal noise swells and the boarding call echoes, Nash stands ready, the uniform steadying him for whatever comes next. Flight 1847 eases away from the gate, its nose angling toward the runway, while Nash stands just behind the glass. That was his seat first class, booked 3 weeks ago at full fare, meant to give him a few hours' peace before facing Marcus's family. The boarding pass in his pocket is useless now. The jet engines rise to a steady pitch, and with them, the sense of a door closing on something he can't get back. This terminal may not be a combat zone, but missing one flight could mean failing Marcus Williams one last time. Around him, the current of travelers flows: families juggling carry-ons, business travelers dictating into phones, a toddler crying over a dropped snack. Their urgency is real, but none of them see the conflict unfolding at Gate 47. The gate agent's smirk lingers behind her counter, unaware she's stepped into the middle of a fight that's older and deeper than a missed connection. Nash resists the urge to answer the Pentagon call buzzing in his pocket. The solution is there if he wants iTone call, and the airline would scramble to fix their mistake. But restraint is part of his code. He remembers Marcus waiting hours at the VA pharmacy, denied the pain meds he'd earned, and knows some battles have to be fought without backup. He lets the phone go silent, choosing to solve this on his own terms. The agent's eyes flick up as Nash approaches again, her posture stiffening. "Problem, Colonel?" she asks, drawing out the rank as if to test his patience. Nash sets his new boarding pass on the counter, his voice even. "No problem, just changing planes." The words are quiet, but the authority in them is unmistakable. He holds her gaze, steady and unblinking, until she looks away. He doesn't waste time on explanations. In Fallujah, rushing led to mistakes. Here, it's no different. He moves with the same deliberate pace he's kept since those days, each step measured. The terminal's chaos is just background noise, another version of controlled disorder that demands focus and discipline. Nash scans the departure board: another flight to D.C., leaves in 90 minutes. If the timing holds, he can still make it to Arlington before the first volley cracks the morning air. A janitor wheels past, the cart squeak threading through Nash's memory of medevac blades. The agent snaps at the janitor to move faster, her irritation sharp and careless. Nash watches, recognizing the larger struggle at play. She's not the enemy, she's a sign of the indifference veterans face every day. The constant need to prove that their service still matters in a world eager to forget. Nash collects his ticket and steps away, his pace unhurried. The Medal of Honor rests against his chest, its weight a reminder of every promise made and every friend lost. He passes a young Marine at the next gate, their eyes meeting in silent recognition. No words are exchanged, but the meaning is clear. Some battles don't end when you leave the field. He checks the time: 13 hours left. The numbers matter. Each minute lost is another inch closer to failing a brother in arms. Nash keeps moving, the mission unchanged. The gate agent glances over, her confidence shaken. She expected an argument, maybe a scene. Instead, she's left with the quiet certainty of a man who's learned that holding your ground is sometimes the only victory. Nash finds a seat near his new gate, the crowd flowing past him. The boarding call will come soon enough. He reaches for his wallet, feeling the familiar leather press against his palm, and prepares for what comes next. Nash thumbs open his wallet, the familiar creak of leather grounding him in the swirl of the terminal. Inside, behind the unused first-class boarding pass, lies the folded funeral program, thin, official, embossed with the Arlington crest. The names printed there are spare and final, Marcus Williams at the top, the date set for 800 tomorrow. Below, 2 more, reminders of the same ambush. 3 adjacent graves, 2 already filled. Nash runs his thumb along the raised seal, the paper soft from handling. This is the only receipt that matters. He remembers sitting with Jocelyn in a quiet room at the funeral home, the air heavy with disinfectant and old sorrow. Her handwriting fills a corner of the program, steady blue ink. Remember the good times. Nash had watched her choose scripture readings, her composure steadier than his. The photo on the program is Marcus at 26, before the lines deepened, before the years in and out of hospitals. The smile is easy, the posture squared. Nash folds the program along the same crease each time, the image bisected perfectly, a small act of control in a world that rarely offers it. The terminal's announcements pulse overhead, but Nash stands apart, the hum of civilian urgency passing around him. Somewhere across the city, an honor guard rehearses, rifles snapping in the morning air. Somewhere, a chaplain reads over his notes, preparing to speak Marcus's name. Nash holds the program in his hand, the weight of obligation pressing down, heavier than any metal. He thinks about the promise made in a hospital room, the one that outlasted morphine and memory. The last real words Marcus managed. Make sure the kids understand. Nash's mind drifts to small, ordinary moments, Marcus steadying his hand during an IV change, laughing when Ranger the service dog stole his socks, the quiet resolve that carried them both through the worst days. These are the debts that can't be paid with paperwork or medals. A text vibrates on Nash's phone. The message is simple, Jocelyn's words direct. The kids want you to do the flag. He reads it once, then again, the responsibility settling deeper. He promised Marcus he'd stand with them, and that promise is stamped into every fold of the program, every mile traveled, every hour lost to delay. The airport crowd flows on, oblivious. Nash slides the funeral program back behind his boarding pass, the paper whispering against leather. 12 hours remain until taps at Arlington. He tucks the wallet into his jacket, the receipt hidden from view, and steps away from the gate. The sound of metals clicking at his chest is soft, almost lost in the terminal's noise. But each step is measured, deliberately a rhythm that carries him forward into the next test. As Nash steps away from the gate, the gap between civilian routine and a veteran's reality becomes clear. The airport's indifference is just another obstacle, not so different from the ones he's faced since coming home. The Medal of Honor at his collar is a symbol few understand, its meaning shaped by sacrifice and the memory of friends now gone. Nash finally boards a late flight, arriving at Arlington just before the 800 ceremony. He stands with Marcus's family, flag in hand, honoring a promise made years before. The medals on his chest catch the terminal lights visible, reminders that his real mission today begins only after touchdown at Arlington. If you respect the silent battles veterans carry every day, consider subscribing to share their stories.